10 years ago, I started embarking on my journey of learning about nutrition, health, and fitness. And then 3 years later, I also started getting into personal development and spirituality because I realized that if I no longer engage in all these unhealthy activities like drinking alcohol, taking drugs, and eating very numbing and stimulating foods, I would have to look at my feelings and emotions. And I also started to realize that I want to create an amazing life for myself, an amazing reality. And in today's video, I want to share all my favorite teachers, YouTubers, movies, and books that have tremendously changed my life. Now, I'm not going to mention everything. I'm just going to mention the ones that have had the most profound impact on my life. So I made a little list and just gonna chat with you. And I think I want to start with movies. So one of the greatest movies that I have discovered at a very young age was WALL-E. And actually, I was just coming back from a silver wedding celebration, and the kids that I used to hang out with back in the days there told me that is the one thing they always remember about me, because we hadn't seen each other in more than 10 years or more than 15 years, something like that. And they said that they remember me showing them the movie WALL-E, and it's a great movie about how the direction of our planet could go if we don't start taking action towards taking better care of our bodies, of our health, and being more independent of things like cars and Uber Eats and all that kind of stuff, Amazon even. And I really love that movie. I even named my road bike after the robot Eve, because I really liked Eve. And so great movie. I think that's also a reason why I am so passionate about teaching and also learning myself about being lean effortlessly without really having to put much effort into it, and losing weight and all these topics, because I think obesity, if we manage to eliminate that problem out of our world, a lot of things are going to be much better. So and then another movie that really inspired me is The Pursuit of Happiness. And great movie as well, about a man who has really the worst conditions to become financially free, and has just a lot going on, but manages to take matter into his own hands and exceed expectations of everyone around him. And great movie that really taught me that anything is possible if I just stay consistent with it and if I believe in myself. Another movie, Brittany Runs a Marathon, that is particularly for inspiring for weight loss, because in that movie there's actually a woman who used to be obese, and during that movie she releases a lot of weight and she runs a marathon, and it's just very inspiring. And very, very nice movie. And then another movie is called Snowpiercer. I'm not going to give away too many details of the movie, but basically it's about a train, and in that train there live different societies, and it's no longer possible to live on the planet because it's so cold on the planet that we would literally freeze to death. And it's a cool movie. I'm not going to give away too many details because I really don't want to spoil it, but it had definitely also like a profound impact on how I look at the world. Another great movie is Forrest Gump, that I think needs no introduction, but I just think it's so hilarious and funny because, you know, the main character in the movie literally is so disidentified from all the success he reaches without even trying. And I think it's just such a great reminder that if we identify too much with the things we're good at, then we're no longer good at them. Like, I feel like the things we're really good at, they really come from a place of not wanting to impress anyone, but us just doing what we love, loving our craft, loving whatever it is that we're doing at the present moment. And then another really, really great one that I also think don't need any introduction. I think on IMDb, it is the highest rated movie, and it's called Shawshank Redemption. And yeah, I think it's also a great reminder to constantly remind ourselves that no matter how big the mess is that we're in, if we learn to enjoy our lives within that mess, then once the mess is away, is, you know, eliminated, then we're going to be able to enjoy the mess-free life a lot more. In a way, I don't know if I described that correctly, but and then also if we resist our outer circumstances when they're not the way we want them to be, and we then get out of the mess, so to speak, then we'll still not be able to fully enjoy it because we are still in that state of resistance. And if we're constantly chasing a carrot that we're never going to reach, then it's just going to be challenging to ever become free from suffering. And then the last one is Inception, a movie about dreaming and dreams. And I'm going to talk more about how just in general, like dreams and like the real reality are very connected and how that has impacted my life. But now let's go over to books. Some very, very famous books in the personal development niche are The 4 Agreements, and there's actually one that a lot of people don't know that's called The 5th Agreement, which is a lot about how we interact with the people around us and society and our like position in society to free ourselves from judgment and negativity that often arises from judgment of others and stuff like that. So definitely great books. Another great book is The 5 Love Languages. It's also self-development book about relationships, not just romantic relationships, but also friendships. And it's definitely a book that has helped me to improve the relationships with the people close to me, because it talks basically about how there are 5 love languages that we have, how we express our love, and every person has individual love languages. So for my mom, for example, gift giving is very important. So when you know that, then even though for me that is not something that I think there's like a test you can do online, for me it isn't even a love language, or just a very minor one. So for me, for example, like quality time is really important, spending time with people. And yeah, when you know what your love language is, then you know a lot better how you can nourish the relationships around you. And also, that was a very, very big discovery I had 1 year ago. Also nourish the relationship with yourself. So if you feel depleted of love in a way, I started also nourishing the relationship with myself by going on a date by myself. Like I really love swimming, so doing that as quality time for myself. Or also another one of mine is physical touch, so feeling the inner body. I think that's also why I love yoga so much. So yeah, it's also a great way to strengthen self-love. And then also Stillness Speaks and A New Earth by Eckhart Tolle are 2 books I really, really love. A lot of people talk a lot about the power of now, but personally, I like A New Earth and Stillness Speaks a lot better, but all of his books are really, really great. Another one that I didn't read, but I listened to as an audiobook is Atomic Habits, and I'm probably going to re-listen to it again very soon. It's such a great book about habits and really learning that results don't just come from doing something one time, but it's about repeating things over and over again and finding a routine that is implemented in your daily life that makes it effortless, fun, enjoyable, where you don't even think about it. It becomes part of your like brushing your teeth and things like that. So yeah, great. A lot of tips that I'm not going to be able to touch in this whole video, but I actually made another whole video on the book Atomic Habits, or like kind of what it talks about. So I'll link that in the description box, or maybe I'll also put it on some card here. And yeah, so great book, Atomic Habits, great tips in there on how to build habits and routines. And then similarly important for my success in building lasting habits that I'm now kind of have dialed in, that bring me lots of joy, bring me lots of pleasure. Just drink some water. Is the book The Compound Effect, that similarly talks about the importance of like making small, tiny changes, and how those compound over a long period of time, and that really motivating you to not try and just do crazy big things on one day, but just what is that one tiny action that if I implemented on a daily basis would give me huge, massive results in the long term. And typically that one tiny thing isn't something grand, isn't something that takes a lot of willpower to do. It's just about doing it. And then once you reap the rewards, once you harvest the fruits of those one tiny actions, you're literally no longer going to think about doing anything else but that one thing in the routine. Like for me, for example, it's the yin yoga in the morning after waking up. Like, it's out of the question. Of course, there are days where I forget to brush my teeth, right? But it's still such a big part of my routine on a very consistent basis, because I have now reaped the reward of doing it. And yeah, it has just benefited me tremendously. And, you know, also other things like my nutrition, my diet, how I feed my body. And yeah, then another book that talks about inner child healing is The Completion Process by Teal Swan is the author's name. Oh yeah, I haven't mentioned all authors, but I always have the books here, so you know the authors. But yeah, The Completion Process is a great book. For me, it's been like an introduction into inner child healing, because a lot of times when we feel triggered in different circumstances with people, which then can lead to us wanting to numb our feelings with food, it's often not something that is just from the present moment, but often there's this quote, if you're hysterical, it's most likely historical. And you don't even have to be hysterical or like stuff like that, but just if you feel triggered, if you feel sadness or anger coming up in a moment, really reconnecting with where is that childhood trauma, or where is that strong emotional feeling or heaviness coming from? Is that really right now, or has there maybe been a moment in the past? And yeah, so it's been a great introduction for me. And then another book that actually helped me get my period back when I was 18. And that is called The Pleasure Trap. Now, I haven't read the entire book, but with a friend's help, I have applied some of the principles shared in the book. And then so the book talks about trapped emotions and how we have emotions trapped inside our body. And then a strategy or a technique that you can do to release those emotions. So we released them together, and one day later I got my period back, which was like so crazy. And definitely for me, because back then I was still like, this whole spirituality thing is a bit woohoo, and I'm not sure if I really want to like believe in those things. But then once I saw the connection between spiritual and emotional health and physical health, because having your cycle, having your period not having it is a sign that, you know, there's some imbalance in your body. And yeah, so it really showed me there is certainly a link between those two. And then the last one, actually two more. Very important one that I haven't mentioned yet, of course, is the 80-10-10 diet by Dr. Douglas Graham. I had the honor to interview the author of that book as well, so I'll also put an interview somewhere here and in the link in the description box with him. And yeah, such a long time in my life when, you know, I was in my teens and I started studying nutrition. I was so confused about it all, and there were so many different conflicting opinions. Some people said, you know, eggs are the healthiest thing ever. Some people said too much cholesterol. Some people said you need your protein. Some people said, you know, just eat lots of carbs. Some people said don't eat any fat. Some people said, there was just so much conflicting information, and then also all the supplement stuff. And the 80-10-10 diet is the only book on nutrition that I'm going to mention here, even though I have read other things, but it is simplifying it to a T, and just every single sentence in that book just resonates on such a deep level with me. That's why, I love the book so much, and I'm so grateful that it brought clarity. Now, I don't fully live by what is taught in that book. You know, sometimes I have more fat or more protein than 10% of my daily calories. So basically it's about eating 80% of your calories from carbohydrates, because that's our primary fuel source. Every cell in the body runs on glucose. And then 10% from protein, 10% from fat. And, you know, sometimes I'm more flexible with it. You know, I'm also not super strict with my salt intake. But like the foundation, the general principles, the pretty much like everyday life consists or is structured of how I eat is structured around that, just from my routine, just from my habits. And then the very last book is Think and Grow Rich. This one I also didn't read, but I listened to the audio version. And while I don't agree with or fully resonate with everything that is shared in the book, since reading the book in conjunction with a lot of other things that I'm going to mention when we get to teachers and YouTubers, is that a lot of financial freedom has started coming into my life. And one of the biggest key takeaways from that book for me was that we can truly allow ourselves to take inspiration from the people who have achieved great success, which I'm going to mention at teachers. So I'm going to mention some of the people who really inspired me. And we can take inspiration from those people instead of feeling like, oh, they have it so much better than me, or I would love their life, or, you know, stuff like that. But instead, take inspiration. And then there was a very interesting part in the book where he talks about before you go to sleep, where our brain waves are in a very healing, cleansing, meditative state when we sleep. And before that, we can connect with the people that we aspire to be like, that we feel inspired by. And I'm not sure I'm going to be able to put this in the right words, but in a way, almost a little bit into a prayer, even though I personally don't follow any specific religion, but making it into kind of a prayer to adopt some of the skills from the people that we look up to. So an example, for example, one of the teachers I really look up to is Eckhart Tolle. So adopting the skill of being present in the moment, being so rooted, being so calm and disidentified from the outer reality, from the outer circumstances. And then while you go into sleep, you can, in a way, connect with these people. And I've done that a few times, and I had dreams where I hung out with celebrities, or almost in a way like lucid dreaming, hanging out with these people. And even though I'm back in those dreams, I wasn't aware that I was dreaming, but it was so cool to hang out with them, talk with them, ask them for advice, and spend time with them, because the power of proximity it's so crazy. It's something I realized when I was in Los Angeles this year, and I hung out with people there. I also hung out with Ted Carr, which is one of the YouTubers who really inspired me as well. And it was really powerful. And then when I read Think and Grow Rich, I realized that it doesn't just apply for real life. You can also just connect with these people in your dreams. And obviously you can connect with people by watching YouTube videos, but I feel like there's something about meeting in real life, or which is similarly powerful in the dreams. I know this all sounded so woo, and I might have lost some subscribers from saying this, but yeah, anyway, that's something that is being talked about in Think and Grow Rich. And now let's get over to teachers. One I have already mentioned, Eckhart Tolle, and someone who really is so joyful and has such a nice humor. I love watching his YouTube videos, and I'm not going to mention him anymore in YouTubers because I consume him everywhere. I read his books, I listen to his lectures on Spotify, I watch his YouTube videos. So there are so many areas that I consume his content, and it comes and goes in waves. I sometimes have periods where I don't feel like consuming much of him, and then I have periods where I watch a bunch of YouTube videos of him and I like to listen to his lectures, or he also has guided meditations that I sometimes do in the morning or in the evening. So yeah, great teacher. And then another one who has, and I also wanted to share a story with Eckhart Tolle, how I discovered him. So when I was 18, I said, okay, I want to go on a world travel. So I had already booked, or my parents gifted me a flight to Australia when I finished high school. And obviously I wanted to save up some money when I wanted to go there. So I was working 2 jobs. On the weekend, I was working in a bakery selling bread. And then during the week, I was working an assembly line job. Literally the most boring job I have ever done in my entire life. It was so boring. But yeah, I was literally for, I think, 3 weeks, 5 days a week, I was doing the exact same thing, like putting something on like another thing. Like the entire day I was doing that. And that time I discovered a CD lying on the desk of my dad. It was by Eckhart Tolle. It was one of his lectures. It was a German one called Freiheit von Gedanken. Highly recommend that if you can find it. I think, or it was like a retreat where the entire retreat is recorded. It is 3 hours or 4 hours long. And I had this MP3 player because we weren't allowed to have phones in there, I think. So I had this MP3 player, but we were allowed to listen to it with one ear in, but one needed to be out just for security reasons or safety reasons. And then I listened to this lecture, I think, on repeat the entire time I was there. Sometimes I would listen to music in between, but I think I listened to that lecture 10 times in that span of 3 weeks where I was working in that assembly line job. And yeah, it really was so cool to listen to it over and over again and realize how much in my head I constantly had been and kind of disidentify. And obviously I lost, you never lose it. It's always inside of you, what you learn in Eckhart's teachings, because he doesn't really teach you anything new. And to the mind, it can sometimes seem so boring what he talks about in his books and his lectures. But yeah, it basically talks about becoming present in the moment, releasing your attachments to thoughts, releasing your attachments to the outer world. And Eckhart just has such a fun way to introduce humor into his teachings as well. So he makes you laugh on a very consistent basis. But it's a very special kind of humor that you need to let go of your ego in order to understand his jokes. So yeah, another teacher that inspired me a lot is Dr. Douglas Graham. As I mentioned, I already met him at several retreats, and he's almost the same age as my granddad. And he is so fit, like he's fitter than anyone else at the retreats and just so healthy, so sharp in his head. And yeah, really great inspiration that just because you age, it doesn't mean that you have to lose your health or become less mobile or, lose abilities to do certain things, and how much control we still have over our health by taking care of all the assets of health. Yes, nutrition is a very important one that he obviously focuses a lot, because his most famous raw vegan book, or one of the most famous raw vegan books, in the niche is from him, but also focusing on all the other aspects like fitness, sleep, sunshine, human connection, and all these things. And then in the kind of same category is Chris Kandel. He shares a lot of similar teachings from Dr. Douglas Graham. And for me, he puts them in a very practical way, in a very implementable way, and also in a very joyful way that doesn't make you feel like you're this depleted person who's just eating very strictly and not going off the rails. But he makes the raw vegan lifestyle very fun, very accessible, and very enjoyable. And yeah, one of the things they both preach a lot, which has also hugely changed my perspective on nutrition, is eat the foods you love and enjoy the most that love you back just as much. It's not about just being loved back by the foods, by feeling good by the food you eat. It's also about eating what you love and enjoy. And those two can coexist at the same time. Because a lot of times people think, you know, a diet like I'm sharing here on my YouTube channel is plain restrictive and boring, and, you know, I'm orthorexic and I'm focusing too much on diet and everything else is unimportant. Hopefully I'm not conveying that picture or that image on my channel, but I've realized through both of their teachings that that's not what it all is about. Because if you have a strong why, for example, feeling really, really freaking good and experiencing next level health, and that's why it has been so powerful for me to actually meet Doug Graham in person and seeing what's possible at his age and what is going to be possible for me if I stay on this path of nourishing my body with healthy food. And again, not always being the most optimal possible, but finding that overlap of what feels good and what, you know, also is right in the moment for me. My backbone is always vegan. My backbone is always high carb, low fat. Yes, sometimes maybe a bit more higher in fat, sometimes a bit lower, but the foundation is always high carb, low fat, fruit-based vegan with lots of delicious, nourishing, and serotonin boosting fruits, high in glucose, high in sugar. But yeah, that has been so huge for me that when I know why I do it, then as I mentioned in the beginning, I had been on like a silver wedding a couple of days ago, and there was a huge buffet with all different kinds of foods. Everything definitely smelled very tasty, but in my mind, the only thing I saw was like a vegan dish with sweet potato and tofu, and there was a huge lettuce bar with lettuces and tomatoes and cucumbers and so many delicious veggies. And those were the only things that I saw that I felt drawn to. The other things, yes, I maybe saw them in my periphery, but they were no part of my focus because I have such a strong why of why I eat this way, and it didn't even feel tempting to me. So yeah, great teachers. And then another great one that has hugely benefited or just transformed the way I look at things is Laura Marlina Seiler, and just the way my life literally has shaped in the last 2 years. And yeah, she is a German teacher, so I'm not going to talk too much about her. She has some English podcast guests if you want to check her out on YouTube. But yeah, if you're German, I know I have some German followers. I have quite a few actually, I think, because I've been messaging with some of you. But yeah, if you are German, then I highly recommend checking her out. She talks a lot about personal development and spirituality, and she really nailed it in my head that I am the creator of my reality. I have so much more power over the things I am experiencing than I think. Yes, it does usually take time for our outer reality to change. And yes, there will be challenges, and definitely, you know, life will always throw things at us to help us grow and to teach us. And for some people, those things are tougher, and not everything can be controlled, but definitely more than we think can be controlled. And then I want to give also credit to some teachers that you won't be able to find online. The first one are my clients. As some of you know, I work with people who have disabilities, and probably I have learned more from them than I have from any of the other teachers that I've mentioned. Because people who have disabilities, they have, again, as I mentioned, some things we can control, but some things we obviously cannot control. And most of the clients I had have learned to enjoy their life despite of their disabilities, despite of their limitations in the outer form, of being able to do things, some of them even being able to walk or exercise, and just being surrounded by them and seeing them still be so grateful for the little things and enjoy their life so much has just opened my heart up so much. And yeah, I've learned so much of them, especially of the clients I've had. I've had a few over the time who are not able to even express themselves articulately. So I wasn't even able to speak with them, but just being in their presence has taught me so much. Because I actually think that we communicate a lot just through our emotions, through our feelings, just by being in each other's presence. So I've learned a lot from all my clients, and I'm very grateful. And the other one are just some of the friends that I have encountered over the years, and also my ex-partners. Not that I have had so many, but I think that the partners we choose in life are usually the ones that sometimes trigger us the most, but have the most healing potential for us. And now the last category is YouTubers. And the first YouTuber I want to mention, even though he doesn't talk about personal development or nutrition or even fitness anymore, even though he used to, is Ryan Trahan. And yeah, he is so entertaining. He's so joyful, most particularly his Penny series that he did a few years ago. It's so fun to watch. And yeah, he's one of those sit back, relax, and enjoy. And in some way, he still changed my life in a way, because as some of you maybe know, I don't know, I haven't talked about it, I might make a whole video on it. I did not go to college, and he's also a college dropout. And while I don't think this path is for everyone, for some years I always knew it's my path not to go to college, but to do what I'm doing now. But for many years I still had a lot of resistance towards it. And watching his content, seeing him being really consistent, and just bringing lots of value through his entertainment to people from a very young age has just shown me that, I don't know, kind of helped me release my resistance towards my path, because I knew it is my path. And still, for some time, I was like, what is society thinking of me? And yeah, he really helped me with that. But yeah, I also just really enjoy his videos, so I wanted to mention him here. And then so the first YouTubers I mentioned here are very consistent with their uploads. Another one is Healthy Emmy. And similarly, then with most people who talk about nutrition, I think it's so important to take the best and leave the rest. So I don't agree with everything she mentions and says, but she has great recipes. She has great tips and content, especially on the topic of weight loss. And she presents a way of eating a clean diet, pretty much salt-free and oil-free and low-fat, in a way that isn't plain and boring, but that's still enjoyable and implementable into everyday life, even though I think as far as you want to go, like even a fully raw vegan diet is implementable into your everyday life. And then another one on nutrition is Freelee the Banana Girl. I made a whole video on her. Again, I do not agree similarly as with Healthy Emmy, with everything she says, and still a lot of fundamental principles that I live by and I eat by come from Freelee. And yeah, she's the queen when it comes to the high raw vegan lifestyle. And one thing that Freelee really taught me is to take it serious, but that it doesn't need to be hard. Because for a long time, when I first got into raw veganism, I actually went into it for health reasons. And I didn't really think that it was that easy, but that it was a grind, it was hard. And then when I found her, I first of all found the component of, even though I had the ethnical part of veganism always in the back of my head, I had watched Dominion, I had watched Cowspiracy and Earthling. I had watched those two. And I always had them in the back of my head, but it wasn't the main motivation, the main fuel. And then when I found her, the ethnical side of veganism really became my main fuel for being vegan in the first place. And that just made it, like, as I mentioned earlier in this video, the other foods are in your periphery, but your focus just becomes the vegan stuff. You don't even see the other things. You don't even identify with them as being food. And then also she taught me it can be effortless. It can be easy. It's not this hard thing where you need to sacrifice everything, but you can still eat a big bowl of potatoes or corn pasta, raw to force style. And you can eat as much fruit as your body feels like. Of course, don't stuff your face to the point where it's uncomfortable or where you're in pain. But yeah, it's definitely an effortless ride, and health and feeling good, it comes with the same price tag, or it comes with the same, it comes at the same time, and it's not separate from each other. So I'm very grateful to Freelee for that. And from what I know, a lot of the teachings she is promoting, is sharing, is preaching, come from Dr. Douglas Graham, the 80-10-10 diet as well. And yeah, then similarly, Ted Carr, his older triathlon YouTube videos when he was still competing as a triathlete, when he was living in Chiang Mai. When I first got into raw food, I watched his YouTube videos. They're very inspiring. Now he isn't really talking about nutrition so much anymore, but more about business. But also on the financial side, he definitely inspired me a lot to become financially free and taught me a lot on that subject as well. And I also had the honor to meet him in real life as well. And I also have an interview, which I'll link down below. And then some people who aren't, again, as active similarly as Ted Carr anymore on the whole nutrition part, where they inspired me the most, is also Sweet Natural Living. He also used to share about raw food, so really was digging his content back in the day. And then the last one is Kelty O'Connor. I hope I'm pronouncing her correctly. And yeah, she is such a she makes very fun, entertaining videos, similar as Ryan Trahan, and she talks a lot about running. And she is one of the YouTubers who got me back into a consistent running routine. And similarly, also Sweet Natural Living, he has a separate running YouTube channel that he doesn't upload regularly on anymore. But that's the great thing about YouTube. You can go back to these YouTubers and you can just binge watch their old YouTube videos. That's why I still wanted to mention those who aren't as active anymore. So Sweet Natural Living also has a running channel, Lone Endurance. And yeah, that one I definitely also highly recommend. All right, those were all the teachers, movies. Oh my God, this was such a long video. If you made it to this point, comment entertainment, because I think even the spiritual, personal development, nutrition stuff still can be entertaining when we find the right teachers and we find the right people. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you maybe in my next video. Bye.